All right, thanks for staying with us on Checkpoint. And the hashtag is, of course, Checkpoint on Twitter. You can also send us an SMS 22155. My Twitter handle is @YvonneOkwara, @John Alanamo, @KTN Kenya. The question we are asking is, has activism gone too far? Has it, Makodingo?
Until recently, until I think Monday, I actually thought it did. Because there is a brand of activism that we had before the times of Boniface Mwangi and Betty Wairederero. Yeah, back in the day when we were fighting for a new constitution, we were fighting Moi's regime. A brand of activism that actually cared about Kenyans as they went about their activism. So you'll find that whenever we had a problem, and whenever there was a problem in the 90s, you'll find people congregating at Kamukunji. I mean, nobody was going around town, breaking windows, and painting, pouring blood on pigs, you know, carrying their 3-year-old babies to go and protest MP's salary when the baby doesn't even understand what that possibly means. Today, you find Boniface and his friends, Betty and company, carrying a bunch of pigs to go and pour blood on them in front of Parliament. For me, the concern is that we've a brand of activism that by the end of the day, you are not so sure what they were demonstrating against. Like, if you asked any Kenyan today on the streets, about that incident of pigs, blooded pigs, they can't remember what it is they were demonstrating against. All they remember is that there were pigs that were smeared with blood. The other day, they even carried donkeys. For some reason, they couldn't reach their destination. So the donkeys were left somewhere at the ICA building, protesting to Mechoka. Yeah, I mean, for me, there is room for activism, yes. But the brand of activism that is being practiced today is not the brand of activism that can achieve results. There are certain occasions when there are better options for achieving results than going to the streets, than causing inconvenience in the CBD for an entire day. You go to the CBD, there are people who probably don't agree with your cause or who just are not interested. But for some reason, you want to occupy a Rambe house and shut down business in the CBD for an entire day. I mean, I understand that probably it is something you believe in. Why not go to Uru, you know, Uru Park, there's a Freedom Corner, where we used to demonstrate actually. Or Kamukunji. Yeah, or Kamukunji. Go, if you think you have enough support, go to Kamukunji and you know,
see if you can.
See if you can.
Makodingo is a master of contradiction. He supports the 90s protest, but he doesn't support the current protest. In the 90s, they used to paralyze a whole city. They would bring Nairobi to a standstill. The shops would be shut down. There would be no activity at all. So you can't say that you support the 90s, you don't support now. Occupy Parliament, we paralyzed Parliament. It's about MP salary. Even the smallest child in the smallest village in this country knows about that. So you can't say that people didn't know what we're talking about.
You know, what is amazing about him?
Activism is a natural response to unfairness and injustice. When the populace is pushed by the ruling party or the government, that's how they respond. And activism is the last resort. Every single person in this country should be an activist. Because if you're a journalist, you can be a journalist activist. That means you stand up for an issue or a particular problem. It doesn't mean that there's a brand of activism. It means that every single citizen is required to become an active citizen. You respond to injustice, you respond to a problem, and you stand up.
All right, so what are those that raise issues with the approach sometimes? For sure, I think what is not in doubt here is that the Langata Primary School did achieve results. The children got their playground back. Bonnie, you want to jump in before we get to
I want to say this about the approach. So I'm an artist, and every time I protest, I use artistic means. So you use an artistic message. If you look at the pigs, George Orwell, 1984, pigs, all animals are more equal than others, pigs are greedy. If you look at the coffins, it's symbolism. Every other protest that we do, you actually work around art to do a protest.
All right,
it gets the attention, and it gets people talking about it, and makes the government respond.
What's the most amazing thing about Occupy Parliament when we use the pigs is the fact that Makodingo forgets that at that particular time, the president of this country himself was quite against Parliament's move to increase their own salaries. So it's not just us who are activists on that day. is also the president of this country, and he led the way. So we're very proud of that, and we're very proud of the sort of
and that is my point.
responses that the civil society had to such a situation, which was a gross violation of the Constitution, and it was quite unfair, especially given that this was a new dispensation that was going on in this country. So unless you want to contradict the president of this country, Makodingo, yeah, you might be the only person in the whole country
Actually,
who did not understand what was happening.
That you have contradicted the president
It
quite
is,
often, though.
she spends her life contradicting the president. It's amazing. She will come on
Could you
national
give
TV
an
give me a
example
lecture
of
about
one
contradicting the president.
occasion?
But this is my point.
You can't just make
In fact, what she's saying is
accusations.
exactly my point. On that occasion, they didn't need to go to parliament and smear pigs with blood. Because they had goodwill. Yeah, everyone in this country was against MPs increasing their salaries. The president was against MPs increasing their salaries. The Salaries and Remuneration Commission was against MPs increasing their salaries. A substantial number of MPs were against MPs increasing their salaries. You did not need the theatrics. It was never going to happen.
Let's talk about theatrics, because at that particular time, the leader of the House majority, Aden Duale, was leading the Jubilee side to insist on increasing a salary increase. So what are you talking about, please?
Let me tell you, the last two, that's the only time the Jubilee and CORD were in the same bed. Increasing the salaries, and they agreed. The president played politics because eventually the MPs got their way, but they'll never forget MPs.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about then achieving results.
Yes.
Because in that particular one, and we'll get to others, with the Langata, like we said, it was successful. Everybody was happy with the outcome, but it isn't always successful.
Occupy Harambee Avenue. 2 days later, Kemayo lost his job, Olelenko lost his job.
Do you attribute that directly?
You can claim a win. We're in the streets as well.
Can you claim that as a victory?
Let me tell you, it's the small actions that lead to the results. So we were in the streets and we spoke about it, and the president heard, and many other voices spoke about it. So eventually, Olelenko and Kemayo are fired. So you can't dismiss those small actions. Today, my kids were at Karura Forest, and we saw the beauty, the waterfalls. That green that is in Karura Forest today is a result of Wangari Maathai activism. And remember what? When Wangari Maathai went to plant trees that particular day, she went with two groups of people. One, she went to plant the trees. The second group went to the control site and burnt everything down. People never remember that thing about Wangari Maathai. Talking about Occupy, Betty.
Occupy Parliament, Occupy Harambee Avenue. Yeah.
I'll
speak for my...
Wangari Maathai was the first occupier.
Yes.
They occupied Freedom Corner for over 1 year.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And
So
they got results.
When you're comparing Occupy situations, and the whole Occupy movement globally, it just means you sit in, occupy that space, and let your voices be heard. That is every citizen's right in this country. When you're talking about Occupy, the best person that you keep on referring to, that Makodingo doesn't remember she used to do this, is Wangari Maathai. She occupied Freedom Corner and for over 1 whole year with the released political prisoners' mothers, okay? And she did that, and they went through hell. You're talking about activists today just sitting on a street. I mean, these women were put through hell. They were beaten. We remember the whole incident at Freedom Corner where they even stripped, just to get people to understand the pain that they're going through. So, Makodingo, if your mothers could strip, I'm telling you, we are not even getting started right now.
We're just
we're just warming up. They're showing us the way.
In the 90s, there wasn't media access. Yeah, media access was extremely limited. The government was extremely intolerant to divergent opinion and divergent views. There were very few, even within this political establishment, the mainstream political establishment, who could actually support a cause like that. So you needed to do this persistently to even get attention, to even get media attention. If not local, then foreign. Today, now, what they did at Freedom Corner, what they did at Karura Forest, is what happened at Langata Road Primary School. And I have been very clear. Langata Road Primary School needed to happen. It was great. That was a great activism, and it achieved the results. My point is, there are a lot of the issues that come to the fore, a lot of them could be solved by alternative means. Yeah?
What are some of those alternative means?
You could, I mean, if you have issues with a law, you can lobby parliament. It is much easier to get a critical mass of parliamentarians from both sides to actually understand an issue, go with it and effect actual change.
I have an
Yeah?
issue. I have an issue. I have a very big issue. I think members of parliament earn so much money. Senators earn so much money. MCAs earn so much money. How will I lobby them to lower the salaries?
Makodingo, how can you lobby the same parliament that went against the president? If the president of all of this country himself could not get them to listen to him, and they're his people.
You do realize Parliament actually never increased their salaries at that time,
They
right?
actually did.
Then,
They did eventually.
No,
They did
this was a
eventually. They
proposal.
got their
This was,
way.
in fact, was a proposal of a committee, an independent committee that was independent of Parliament, in fact. It was a proposal of a committee to increase MP salaries. Now, we could have an entire debate on MP salaries, by the way.
But
yeah?
they got their way
Yeah?
eventually.
They got their
They
way. You
didn't.
have to admit
In
it.
that instance, they
Oh
didn't
my
get their
They
way.
got their way
Alright.
eventually.
Some-
The word eventually
at
means
some point they did.
They
They
got
did.
it.
No. MPs just got to
No.
retain the salaries that the previous MPs were earning, which is a different
But
issue
SIR
altogether.
Commission was they take a pay cut and they pay taxes.
Yes, and they're paying taxes.
They pay taxes, but they
Yes.
have the same salary even after taxation.
Listen,
the fight was
listen, Boniface. If we started
Okay,
a discussion,
here's the question.
wait, Betty. If we started a discussion on MP salaries, I know several MPs, a lot of them, who by fifth do not even have a single cent in their pocket.
We
It's
don't-
lifestyle.
it's
It's
not-
No, this is not lifestyle.
You can't blame it for their lifestyle.
The MPs who can't even put on their phones. You put on your phone and
So
within
what's-
10
what's-
minutes,
what's the
your
point?
800,000
He's
shillings is
blaming-
committed
he's
somewhere
blaming their
else.
lifestyle on us.
This is not a
No, it's a
Yvonne,
lifestyle issue.
And
It's a
no, just
lifestyle.
make your point,
this is not a
Makodingo,
lifestyle issue.
before we start
The
to
problem
judge that.
with MP salaries, and I wish we didn't have to go to this debate because that is a debate for another day, is our mindset as Kenyans. Yeah, my rural member of parliament is the solver of all problems. Yeah, he pays for all burials, he pays all hospital bills, he pays school fees for everyone, he pays for weddings. In fact, by the time the man has seen his salary, all of it, if he didn't put some in mortgage and some in the SACCO, an MP will generally, even with 1 million shillings they get, will not
Makodingo,
make
what is
any
your
of that
point?
money.
Because it sounds
Yeah,
like you're
My-
he's just justifying them
My
increasing
point
their
is,
salary.
You need to become a member of
Despite the
parliament.
president himself saying no,
No,
don't
for the
increase
record,
your salary.
for the record,
You know, have you
for the
been-
record,
by the
I
way,
do
have
not
you been in a
intend to run
vacuum?
for office in
Let him finish.
the next,
2017.
not anytime soon, not in 2017, not in 2022. I am just saying there are occasions when it will do us more justice if we understood the issues that aren't better, and if we approach them in a more civilized manner.
Let me-
It is okay to
Are
protest.
you calling
Can
us,
I now
are you calling
say
us
this?
uncivilized?
Very, in fact, very uncouth. It is not just. You can protest. I have no problem if you went to Freedom Corner. The media will cover you.
This guy.
Right.
speaking
But when you
like-
come to the middle of the city
No,
and paralyze activities for a whole day,
being
you are
ridiculous.
infringing on the rights of the same citizens
this
you
guy
are
is
pretending to be
contradicting.
protecting.
How do
Okay.
you support the protests of the 90s, which used to
Which used to
paralyze
go into the streets,
whole
because
city?
that's what I was going to say.
The only reason the protest of the 90s, when the original idea for Sabasaba, for example, was for people to go to Kamukunji and have dialogue with the Wananchi. That was the idea.
No.
The reason there was chaos all over is because the government of the day was determined to ensure that never happened.
All right.
That nobody
Okay.
accessed Kamukunji in the
So
first place.
Makodingo, let's understand. For you, what it is that the brand of activism now needs to change because times have changed.
Times have changed
So
substantially.
change to
Okay.
what?
Times have changed substantially.
Let me ask you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have
But
you
we
ever
have
stood up for
changed.
anything in your life?
A lot. Wait,
Give us an example.
I used to be an activist. I used to head an organization that used to
Listen,
fund demonstrations
It's
and
not a-
protests.
Activism is not a career or a job description. I have a real job. I go to work every day. So
But you
can't come and tell
believe,
me,
Bonnie, you believe that everybody should be an activist because you said
see,
that.
you don't have to be in the streets to be an activist.
Okay, let me just read you a tweet here from Khoisan Masharia. Lorna Rungu. Everyone has a role to play. Journalists report stories, lobbyists lobby, activists occupy. Everyone does their part. But do you believe that everybody is an innate activist or should be, so to speak?
every single person in this world should be an activist. And you see, the problem what you mistake activism is going to the streets. That's not activism. That's only a part of activism. That's actually a result of activism. But even you tweeting and blogging about it, speaking about it, raising your voice in a space, is still a form of activism.
Okay, great. Just hold that thought because let's talk about that, the tweeting and the online sort of thing. Because, you know, you're quite active on social media. But I'd like to ask this question because this is what a lot of people are saying. It's what is known as celebrity activism.
What is that?
I'll tell you what they define celebrity activism to be, that it's all about, you know, taking photos and being seen to be in a certain space and doing this online, but really just for the fame of it rather than for achieving results?
I don't know how other people are doing it, but this is how I use social media. I use it as a platform to impart information, collect information. I do a lot of research from people I follow who, and I'd say above 50% of the people I follow post links, about 5 to 10 links per day. And I follow over 1,000 people. So 600 of them post about 5 to 10 links a day. That's how much reading I'm doing online. I also retweet those links. I talk a lot about a lot of salient issues of the day, and that's how I express myself on a daily basis.
Do you believe that affects change?
I believe that knowledge is power, okay? And the kind of information that you can get online, that you can garner online, is changing a lot of people's perspectives in this country. And that is very important. When it comes to, I don't know, taking selfies and what have you, I don't think that anyone can find a selfie of me in the last 1 year or so. I don't do that, yeah? But I'll say there's nothing wrong in the different approaches people use when they're using social media. I use a lot of sarcasm, I use a lot of jokes just to get people to pay attention to an issue. And I also use social media to just chat with my friends. So it depends on how you want to approach matters when you're doing activism. But more importantly, like Khoisan Macharia had said, that you can be a journalist during the day, and you can use that platform, yeah. But to further your
here's the question though: do you have to? Because sometimes it seems from the statements you make, it's almost we must all be activists. Though that may not be everybody's brand or everybody's way of effecting change.
We need to define activism all over again. It's about being an active citizen, speaking out when things go wrong. Every human being, whether it's your religion or your morals or your bringing, you need to have that humanity in you, or humanity in you, to make you speak when things go wrong. The reason why I think that members of parliament are broke by the end of the month is because people ask them for handouts. But if members of parliament did their job and ensure that they passed policies that are friendly to the people, that the economy was working, that the systems are working, they don't need to give out handouts, because if I have access to the market with my small kashamba, I'll sell things. So speaking up actually is a responsibility for every single human being.
All right, what of those who don't feel like that's what they want to participate in? Because everybody can, speak out about it, but not everybody is probably...
I also think that voting should be compulsory. You know why? Because we live in this country, and sometimes you experience bad leadership because of people who don't vote. Because if my one vote is not going to count, then if you all voted, then you actually live maybe better. So activism and voting are things that should be compulsory, like just oxygen and breathing.
Okay, all right.
Everyone should have a stand. Let's not have those guys who lack a backbone, who are flip-flopping every other day. Leo wewe ni baridi, leo kesho ni moto. We need guys to be very consistent.
Yvonne, I've been wondering. The other day, I think I saw Boniface with photos of his children. His daughter at 3, I think at 5.
And actually, we do have some of those photos now. We'll be showing them up on screen in just a while.
I think at 7, going to demonstrate with them, my dress, my choice, during Occupy Parliament and all those things. And I was wondering where he was coming with that from. And then when he says that everyone should be an activist, then now I understand. But that is the problem. A 3-year-old cannot even comprehend why you can't buy her a bicycle. She thinks that he has money, and when she asks for something, you will give her the money.
May I respond to this?
Now, when you take a 3-year-old to occupy Parliament, a 3-year-old has absolutely no capacity to comprehend why people are occupying Parliament. She has no capacity to comprehend why MPs should get more money or should get less money. Taking that child to the streets, in my opinion, is child cruelty. In fact,
all right.
Those photos, Boniface should be taken.
Let's just take some closer shots of that, just like my cameraman to take some shots of that as we carry on with our conversation.
I actually think it should be charged at the children's court with child cruelty.
Can I now respond?
You're a mother.
As a mother, let me say this. Makodingo, I don't know what's up with your kids, but mine are really,
he has
really
no
sharp.
Kids.
Okay. Oh, he has no children. That's
why.
Okay. By the time a child is 3 years old, you ask the standard question.
No children.
No, I let you talk. Okay. The standard question that a 3-year-old will ask is why. Okay. You need to eat your breakfast. Why? And it keeps on going on and on and on and on. And once you have a child, you know show that this child is curious about the world they live in and they want to know why things are happening. They have TV. They can see things are going on. They can see children being tear gassed. They're going to ask you why. Why would you take your child to a protest so that your child becomes as active, as involved a citizen as you are supposed to be?
Okay, but some would say you're already making that choice for them at the age of 3.
They can
And that perhaps you would let them be and until they're of age.
Oh,
and
come
by
on,
of
you're also
age,
taking
you mean
them
yes.
to school. Are you not
No,
making a choice for them at that point?
Okay.
Yeah, you're
Yvonne,
also
we can't
taking
let
them to
this
school.
pass. This line of
Yeah?
argument.
And
But
can't
because
pass.
education is a fundamental right and you are required
Exactly,
under
and
law to do that.
you are
However,
supposed to-
protesting, which is itself a fundamental right,
You're-
but many
you're
people
teaching
question...
your child the difference between right and wrong. I took my
Okay.
son, who's 7-year-old, to the my dress, my choice,
Mhm.
and I'm so sure my son and my daughter will grow up. My son will grow up respecting women. As in, you couldn't tell that you're indecently dressed because of the way you're dressed.
Okay.
And my son understands. He's 7 years old. He understands these things.
I'm not talking
I'll
about
tell
a
you
7-year-old.
something, Yvonne, by the
I'm
way.
talking about
My
that
son
3-year-old
was-
girl.
Let's
That's
away
the
from
little
the
one.
But my son went to the street when he was 4.
No, Betty.
My daughter went to the street when she was 2 years
He
old.
still has an opinion, whether
So
or not
my
he may
son
be a
is 7
parent.
years today. I have photos of him in the streets when he was 4 years old. I'll share them with you on Twitter. Just to
No, no,
educate you.
I have seen
so
the
you,
photos.
so
Wait.
you can actually have a discussion with my son. In
Let
my
us
house,
also talk about...
my kids talk like adults. You know how the things are. We talk, we discuss issues, and I have to explain myself. I don't come and say, I'm not a dictator in my house. I come and say, this is the way it should go. I explain why.
Okay.
So my son will have an understanding
I'd like to-
of how
This
things
is my-
happen.
All right, Makodingo, then we can move
my
forward.
opinion on this issue.
Mm-hmm.
A 3-year-old has no business being on the streets. In fact, I actually think that the Bonifaces who take their 3-year-olds to the street are using those children as shields.
Shields
To
to
protect
do what?
them from the inevitable police brutality.
No.
Yeah.
Okay,
Let me tell
Makodingo,
you,
that
let me
was
tell
what
you.
was... Hang on a
As a
second. That was what
response
was
to this,
said of the Langata Primary School, though. But you don't agree with that?
Where?
You think they use the children of
The
Langata
Langata
Primary?
Primary School wasn't a protest by activists. Langata Road Primary School was children
Mhm.
going to access a playground that they usually go to play at break time every day.
Well,
the activists just happened to have gone there to assist them
Okay.
in case someone...
All right.
That
okay,
I
okay.
agree with.
Okay,
that I
fine.
agree with.
All right,
Quick
you
one,
both
quick
agree
one.
on that. Yeah.
How you can't use kids as shields? That you know you're not even a father. That's actually inhuman. In this world,
Boniface, I have an 8-year-old son. No, wait.
Yes,
we
first,
can't let
I was
this-
going to say let's...
no.
we
Let me
can't
say
let
that.
this
Would you like to say that now on national television?
Yes,
you have an
yes,
8-year-old
I have
son.
an 8-year-old
Okay.
son,
Uh-huh.
and I have another one who is 1.5 years.
Oh,
All right.
congrats.
Yes, don't congratulate you on
Okay.
having children.
Gentlemen,
No.
I'd like you to pause. Pause, Boniface, because
Yes.
I'd like you to listen to this from Thuranina Kaugiria on Twitter. It says, you cannot justify parents letting their children go and protest and picket. We all know how these protests take place, particularly in this part of the world. Probably
It's
this is his
extremely
point.
responsible,
In
I
other
think.
countries, but knowing that there is a potential for violence,
Yes.
then that you shouldn't put your children in that position. I'd like your response to that.
I think it's very responsible for police to tear gas anyone. Doesn't mean if you're an adult or a child, if there's no violence. And so when we went to the streets with my kids, actually we only tear gassed once. And I think it was very wrong for them to do that. I think police should be able to control how they manage riot and how they manage demonstrations and how they
But
manage...
until that happens, do you
So
still want
I-
to put
I
children
still
in
do
that position?
I think police... So I'll give an example of Monday. So Monday the kids left the school to go to go and access the playground. There was no warning shot. The police did not engage them. They did not tell them anything. They were tear gassed without any form of dialogue, and that was very wrong. And I think we should actually be protesting and be against police brutality and police tear gassing people, and should actually go ahead and ask the government of this country how much money is spent on bullets and tear gas every year that is used on innocent Kenyans.
All right, let's move this conversation forward, because my question now is about sustainability and following an issue through to its hopefully positive conclusion.
There's no protest that has been about negative things. It's all about positive outcome, and we get listened to and people hear. And the idea is to actually build more active citizens across the country. I live in Nairobi, I protest in Nairobi. People say, why do you protest in Nairobi? Because I live in Nairobi.
Okay.
This is my local.
Bonnie, my question, though.
How do you ensure that every single person, the whole country, holds their government or their county government or their leaders accountable to such an extent there's no need for protest?
All right.
Because protest
Bonnie?
is the only thing that we do when we
Okay.
have no other option.
Right, and we'll ask Makodingo whether there are no other options. But this was my question.
Makodingo said, let's go to court.
Yes, which is an option. Is
Last
it not?
A very valid option.
It's a very valid option, but sometimes it doesn't work.
Okay.
in many instances.
Sometimes protest too doesn't work, right, Betty?
But sometimes it does. That's why you have Karura Forest and Uhuru Park.
And
Two
equally,
examples.
sometimes the judiciary does work and sometimes it doesn't. I mean, the same could
It's
be
a
said.
win-win for everything.
Okay, all right.
I'll
Betty?
say this. Okay, first of all, let me respond to the matter about children in protest. You have to remember that Article 37 does not restrict anyone legally with whatever age you
It
are.
doesn't say
It
children,
doesn't say
senior
children.
citizens.
So
and, okay.
whether you should go to a protest with your child is not a legal matter, but a moral question, okay?
Yes.
And let us put it this way. You seem to, and there's a nation, you seem to accept that it is okay for police to even attend a protest and be brutal. And so, given that basis, children should not go to protest. But the actual reality should be that people should be allowed to protest peacefully. Okay, and to attend those protests peacefully and to be left alone, and no harm should come to
And
them.
to express
whether
themselves.
they are 100 years
Okay.
old or 3 years old.
All right, I need to cut you off
So,
because we're running out of time, and I want
Now
us to cover...
answer to your
yes,
question,
yes.
your question concerning positive results in activism. Like you said, it can turn out either way. But more importantly, you have to understand the purpose of protest. The purpose of protest for most citizens is to express, to vent that frustration, to express, to be visibly seen, by the government or whoever it is that you're protesting against, yeah, to be physically present and to be physically seen, to stand up for your rights. Okay, and every person has a right to do that. So whether you think that venting or that expression will have a positive impact or not.
So
Yvonne,
the idea is to express yourself.
Yvonne.
Okay.
Good one.
All right.
Good one.
Yeah.
Occupy Playground was one of the first MPs in the streets. They've done that across the country to protest about the headmaster being transferred or a school issue, but they've not been tear gassed. It was the first time they've been tear gassed, and because a powerful individual was involved. But before, and then there's another guy, Martin Luther King Jr., who used kids in protesting in Birmingham. And historians say that was the turning point of civil rights in the U.S. My point being, he was a Nobel Peace Prize winner,
Right.
and no one faulted him for doing that. So there's no right age for fighting injustice.
All right. I'd like us to finish the conversation very quickly. We have 3 minutes. Makodingos, you give us your closing comments on which way activism, which way going forward, the pros and cons, in your opinion, and perhaps the different approach taken. And very briefly after that, if you can be very quick, I'd just like you to comment after that on the Keter saga that's unfolding this evening.
I think there's still room for what we call mass action. There are few occasions that warrant it, like Langata Road Primary School, where all avenues for state action failed for several weeks. In fact, nothing was being done. Schools were opening and children needed to go to school. So I think to that extent, there is still room for mass action, but we cannot pretend that we are still living in 1991 or 1990, because the situation is different. We have a new constitution, we have leaders who are more responsive, we have a citizenry that is more informed, we have media that is more engaged. So I don't think we should continue doing the things we did in 90s. In fact, I actually think we used to do them better in 90s than we are doing them now. On the Keter saga, it's unacceptable, yeah, that an elected leader will storm an office where people are working. They've been working there the whole day. Those people work at night, all night through, to go and protest on personal grounds, yeah. And not just protest. It's okay to go there and point wrongs. But when you go name dropping, when you go threatening people with transfers, with losing their jobs, with closing down the station, then it becomes extremely responsible. And you could have seen it, in his eyes and the way he was reacting. If for nothing else, I think Alfred Keter should be fired for not knowing his job. Because he went there to say that MPs make laws, and when they are not working for them, they break them. And then he used some very unpalatable words on the things they do to Kenyans. If for nothing else, he should be fired for not knowing what is in parliament to do, actually. Because what we saw in Gilgil, that is zero. There is no job description of member of parliament that can actually excuse the kind of behavior that him and Sonia had.
All right, okay.
It's inexcusable.
Boniface,
Yeah.
I'd just like us to move to the Keter issue very quickly.
I think Keter is a big shame. He reminds of the Moi era where people used to name drop and say phone calls. And I think he's drunk with power. And police cannot do their job if they're harassed by powerful people and they're told about phone calls. Keter should be charged and prosecuted as in fully to the law, and if possible, I hope he gets a conviction as a lesson that you cannot behave like that. And what worries me more is that he's a young man just like me, And if it reflects young people, then we're in trouble. So I hope that this time round, the police are going to do their job and use him as a lesson that you do not abuse a police officer.
Is this something you would go to protest for?
But
Just asking.
I have protested in the past for the police.
Yeah, no, but this particular incident, is this something you would occupy?
Occupy can take. The law is working. They're going to. I hope they charge him soon, as an example.
All right. Okay. Betty, your final thoughts?
Well, my final thoughts are, first of all, I do encourage Kenyans to speak out, to remember, just like Yetera, you don't use certain language, even on social media, just be civil. Yetera's situation, for me, I just took it as comedy, because this country is drama after drama. Everyone should be in the Oscars or something, but more importantly, that is not the way you speak to other people. That's not the way you talk to someone who you need service from. And it was very shocking that they would approach them that way.
All right, just very quickly, I just want a yes or no from the three of you. Do you think this was, and I've heard this on social media, that this is all a ruse to distract us from the bigger story, which is land grabbing, which is the story that broke on Monday? Just yes or no. Do you think this is all choreographed to get us away from the bigger and more important discussion of land grabbing?
That was just pure thuggery by Yetera.
No, there's a bigger issue. Bensouda released her evidence against Uhuru on Monday and hasn't been playing at all. How about how people were killed? And I think this following week, that story should actually be...
So for you, you think this is choreographed to get us away from that discussion?
No, has bad manners.
Okay. Betty, yes or no?
I just think that if we consider this choreographed, then how do you explain all these other MPs doing similar stuff,
Okay, all right, fair point. Thank you very much for joining us on the panel tonight. Betty Waitherero, Boniface Mwangi, and Dr. Makodingo Washington. That has been our discussion on Checkpoint. I'm getting to your feedback, talking about the Day of the African Child, and that is how we got all of the freedom to speak. Joy Doreen, I see your tweet as well, talking about what's happening in Uganda. We'll get to your feedback, but first, let's get to what the point of our discussion was tonight. John?
Very interesting discussion, very well elucidated there by our panelists and very well led by Yvonne. But what is the point to this discussion about protest? And what is the heart of the right, what is at the heart rather of the right to demonstrate? The heart of the right to demonstrate is, as was elucidated in this discussion, being able to bring out issues that a group of citizens, a citizen as an individual, or certain interest groups in the country have, and being able to do that in a peaceful manner. That is part of the democratic project. But secondly, and perhaps what was at the heart of this discussion today, is today's activism theatrical or symbolic? There have been protests since time immemorial, especially as the world grapples with this democratic project or experiment in various countries. In Tiananmen Square, there was a symbol to that protest. There have been symbols everywhere. But when does symbolism trump the message that is trying to be brought across is perhaps a question that we need to address ourselves to. Are we focusing too much on the symbolism of a protest in order to keep it top of mind with the citizenry? Or do we focus more on the message and lose people in the minutiae of that message? Finally, the third one is, do we need activism in this day and age? And the answer quite simply is yes. Any democratic country, any republic that is democratic has this enshrined as part of its principles, as part of the principles of its rulership and its leadership. Because, as was mentioned in this discussion, there will be times when the structures that have been put up by a constitution, by governments, to be able to address the concerns of the public will not work. And the public still needs that voice. It is important for the public to be heard on any given issue that they choose to address themselves to. And that is why protest is important, and we should not think that because the times have changed that protest should die away. Times change, but protest, like culture, should evolve with them. And that is the point.